So, hello, Frank Lloyd Wright fans of organic architecture, fans of modern architecture. I am Colin Slace, your host, presenter, Frank Lloyd Wright expert. I'm an architect here in the Phoenix Metro, Arizona area. And today we're going to do a little bit, something a little bit different. I went back to my archives of photos that I took in the early to mid 1990s through all of our traveling I did with my good buddy back in Missouri. We traveled all around the Midwest, the West, over many, many states in the country, looking at Frank Lloyd Wright buildings and other famous architects and other famous buildings as well. And that was in the early to mid 90s. I was using a film camera, an old Minolta camera. So all of those photos were on film. I got them, I have the negatives, I got prints made. And then finally, a few years ago or so, I had them digitized so that I could finally have JPEGs of all these photos. And then some of the photos that were dark and a little bit blurry here and there, I was able to at least sharpen and touch up. And I'm going to start sharing these with you now. So we're basically calling this Frank Lloyd Wright out of the archives. And I'll start to bring this up now. And you can see, we'll go through sort of this trip together. So I'm calling it Frank Lloyd Wright out of the archives. And like I said, these are photos that basically I hadn't seen for 30 years. And so we're starting in the Northeast today, and then I'll have a series of videos out on YouTube with all of our travels around the country, looking at these old slides of Frank Lloyd Wright buildings sort of back in the day. So here's the one photo that came out okay. When we toured the Robert Llewellyn Wright House in Bethesda, Maryland. Awesome house, all curves and arcs, made out of this, usually it's Western red cedar, so siding, horizontal siding, standard gray concrete block, and of course, Wright's infamous butt glazed corner window. You can kind of just make out the Taliesin lamp here, Wright's custom lamp made out of wood, designed here to built in. This is a bedroom here. It's a two-story house. It was really cool. Wish I had more photos of it. I had one photo of the front here. It didn't come out well. We got to go inside it, outside it. It was really cool. And we enjoyed ourselves there. All the typical Frank Lloyd Wright stuff, red concrete, terracotta or Cherokee red concrete floors, floor to ceiling French doors out onto terraces, flat roof, really cool. Beth Shalom Synagogue in Elkins Park, Pennsylvania. We have concrete here. We have stamped metal fascias and paneling here, all this stamped metal. And then I think if I remember my reading correctly, I think these panels here are basically like a plastic, kind of a resin plastic material. And if I remember correctly, I think it's a sandwich of the plastic material on the outside, insulation in between, and then this same plastic material on the inside. So the main entry here, and we've got a detail here. Look at how the sun glistens off these panels. Again, this stamped metal, geometric pattern. Of course, Mr. Wright, always known for the geometry expressed in the architecture. In this case, it's all about the triangle, the pyramid, this kind of angle throughout the design. And so that's incorporated, of course, into the ornamentation, essentially, which Wright really believed was to reveal a truth. I mean, it wasn't just ornament for ornament's sake. And was always some meaning imbued into it or tied to it to connect it to the overall design of the building. And that's organic architecture. Again, part is to whole as whole is to part. It's all related, and has some kind of connection to the overall design in those details. Well, the infamous Falling Water in Bear Run, Pennsylvania, probably one of the greatest buildings I've ever seen. And I've been all over the US and I've been to Europe a little bit here and there. So not that I've seen much around the world, but so far from just personally what I've seen, wow. Of course, it's incredible. So again, remember, this is the early, I don't remember exactly what year this might be, maybe the early 90s. So this was before, its major restoration that it underwent. Oh, I don't know, can't remember, some maybe 10 years ago or so. So this is prior to that. And, I remember being there trying to photograph this, thinking, I'm going to photograph falling water in a way that no one ever has before. Well, you just about can't. I mean, all the photos I have are just the way that you would photograph this house from the exterior. But here you can see the tour and all the people here on these balconies. This concrete, cantilevered concrete, you can barely make out the supports under here connected to the stone verticals, the waterfall here, and these cantilevered concrete slabs, just these floating trays essentially. And that was the concept. It's a tray. So obviously the floor is back down here somewhere. You turn up the edges, gives it rigidity, gives it strength, and you just float out in nature above this waterfall. It's just absolutely thrilling. I encourage everybody to go. If you can see this building, do it. It'll change your life essentially. And if you're an architect or an architectural student or just someone interested in organic architecture, this is unforgettable. So again, here you can see some people, you can see the, windows open here, the Cherokee red frames, but you can see some damage, some weathering and some damage here a little bit at the underside of these cantilevers. But this, opening in the cantilevered roof here to let light in, but yet a solid shade device here over the windows on this side of the house. And again, so it's this juxtaposition of the the horizontal concrete slabs, even the shade slabs, and then contrasted to the vertical stone supports and piers. And then the stairs, I think there'll be another photograph here of these stairs from the living area that go down to the water here to this sort of landing area here. It's just, I don't know, maybe a foot or so above the water when we were there. Just incredible. And I think, some people say, why are these here? They go to nowhere. Well, they go down so you can sit here and dip your feet in the water. You're connected to the waterfall. And I think it's also, my interpretation was, it was a gesture of connecting the house to the site, to the waterfall, sort of literally. But again, these planters with these beautiful flowers blooming. I mean, it's just extraordinary. Over to New York now, obviously the famous Guggenheim Museum in New York. Again, it was raining this day. But again, just absolutely an amazing building. I mean, this smooth, curvy, sort of unornamented, minimalist, sculptural shape in New York. It was just amazing. And again, so here we go. Organic architecture at its finest. The curve, the circular plan, the spiral, literally, the curved corners, except here, this circular area here. Look at the half circle frame in the windows. the curves here, the curves around here at these planters, the curve here at the corner. Everything is about the curve, but again, kind of juxtaposed or countered with the straight line. So you have that sort of good yin yang effect, kind of from the side here. And then this was an addition later. Gordon Bunshaft, I want to say, was the architect for that. I don't even remember it or remember going into it. Of course, I was just thrilled with this, with Mr. Wright's work, but I think there's more of the exhibit in this building. And I think the idea here with this building was to provide a backdrop to Wright's Guggenheim, to not compete with it, to not try to meld with it, but to basically just kind of provide a contrasting background to Mr. Wright's building. And then, as the infamous Vincent Scully, the architectural historian, said, the rest of the buildings follow the law and the rule of the road. And then here you have the Guggenheim, which of course is absolutely the opposite and counter to nothing but flat facades and straight lines and repetitive windows. So again, when you counteract that, you of course set yourself off from the rest of the city. And it's just absolutely thrilling. I mean, even the lights here are domes, just everything is about the curve. And again, here, here's the city here, Central Park right across the street, incredible sight. And coming around the other side of the building along the street here, I never knew what this side of the building looked like. And so again, I was kind of in my phase of, let's photograph a building and take photos that no one else has ever taken before. You can kind of see these gates here. You can see this sort of quarter pie shaped or curve design in the gates. So once again, same thing here. And then you're starting to see sort of this side of the building, which nobody ever really seems to photograph it too much from this side. But again, there's this curved corner here. It does look in line with this building here, but and then you can even see the circular windows here. Again, it's all about the circle, the curve, the half circle, the quarter circle, and it's just offsetting from the rest of the city. Now, it doesn't just offset simply to offset. Wright's reasoning was, a new way to look at art, a modern way to look at art. You take the elevator to the top. He wanted you to start at the top and you wind your way down this ramp, looking at the artwork as you make your way down the ramp. It's just this one singular open space. There's a skylight in the middle. So it's basically a donut. You just glide down these ramps looking at the art. You can stop, you can pause if you want, go to the inner portion of the balcony, look across the way at the art across the way. You can see people. It's basically one giant room. And it's a thrilling experience to see art this way, as opposed to the way we've all seen it. Boxes within boxes. You walk through an opening into a box, through that box through an opening to another box. And again, you're just kind of the mouse in the maze. These openings here were to let light in. And I remember an interview that Bruce Brooks Pfeiffer gave, who ran the archives at Taliesin. And he said, this was to let light in, and the wall was like an easel. And it was basically, the idea was to have the artwork on the wall like you would as if it were an easel, with light coming in over the top down onto the artwork, lighting it that way. So there was all the reasoning behind it. Now people, you can criticize the reasoning and criticize it, and it got a lot of criticism. The artists of the day said, I can't, there are no flat walls. How do I hang my artwork on a curved wall? And, all kinds of criticism. But of course, it's a masterpiece and memorable. And I thought it was thrilling. There's a house in Indiana, the Richard Davis house. Really, really unique house here. Painted concrete block, but this teepee living room shape here with here's the masonry fireplace mass in the middle. This came from I think it was a 1920 or 1922 design that I think Wright did for, can't remember what it was, a lodge or something, or a clubhouse or something. You all might know, in another state, decades before it was built here. But Wright would often do that, have ideas throughout his career, hold on to them, reemerge them, rework them when he thought appropriate. And so I'm glad it happened, because this was just thrilling. It was spectacular. And you can see here. Look, they even have the rug draped over the terrace wall here, just as in Wright's perspectives. And we'd always show those in his presentation drawings or his perspectives. But then there's these Cherokee red sort of vertical corbels that I guess help support this large roof overhang. And they wrap around the whole house. It's just incredible. And if I remember correctly, and I might have kind of a false memory here, really nice people that lived in this house at the time. And again, my friend and I wrote letters to every Frank Lloyd Wright homeowner that we were going to try to visit. And that all came from William Storer's Wright Companion and his book on Frank Lloyd Wright's existing structures, to get the addresses and everything. You can probably Google it maybe as well. You obviously don't want to, excuse me, that's my wife calling. So you obviously don't want to be, just showing up at houses uninvited. And so we would write letters and get responses from the homeowners, and got a lot of yeses, got some nos, and that's the way it is. But I remember these people were really nice. And if I remember correctly, I think their kids, they had kind of smallish, 5-6-year-old kids. I think they were riding their big wheels or something around the house, because of course it's Cherokee red concrete floors. It was a large home, and they had a lot of fun in there, if I remember that correctly. The Mossberg house, South Bend, Indiana. So my mom is from South Bend. She was born in 1932. This house, I think, was built, I don't remember the exact year, it's in the 40s sometime. My mom remembers going in this house when she was young. So when my friend and I were there, we went up to the front door. I can't remember if we got a response from them or not. But we went up to the front door and knocked, and I think a caretaker woman answered, and we said, we introduced ourselves and said, would it be possible to see the house? And she had to go check with Mrs. Mossberg, who I think must have been in her, 90s at the time, quite elderly. And she came back to the door and said, no, Miss Mossberg will not be able to see visitors. So we weren't able to get inside the house, but that Mrs. Mossberg was still around then. Back in the early to mid 90s, my friend and I got to meet a lot of the original Frank Lloyd Wright homeowners and talk to them about their experiences. And that was a great education. So weren't able to do that quite on this one, but obviously talk about a thoroughbred here. This whole house is brick, I think, inside and out. So it's very streamlined and sort of sleek, and a beautiful home in South Bend. There's another Frank Lloyd Wright house, the DeRhodes house in South Bend, that my mom remembers walking through the backyard on her way to school. So anyway, then I've switched gears here. We're going to Dallas, Texas. This is kind of a one-off in Texas for me, for Wright buildings. And this is the Gillen house in Texas. It's a huge house. I can't remember the square footage. Don't quote me on this, but I want to say it was like 11,000 square feet or something. I know it was huge. Incredible house. Here, just the design of these gates, here in the stone, of course, and the retaining wall, the driveway down to the carport and the front door. Of course, the small windows giving you privacy, as Wright always did. Small windows at the front, larger floor to ceiling windows in the back. This was an amazing house. All stone, this copper Bermuda roof, with the stamped metal fascia. My friend and I got to go inside and outside of this house. Again, we wrote letters, and I think the neighbor took us through. Really nice guy. So it was incredible to see. I don't have any interior photos. I don't think we were allowed to take photos, which is common, and we respect that. It's either that or my camera just wouldn't take good interior photos because I think I didn't have a flash or something. But this is the living room here. And I do remember hexagonal shaped Philippine mahogany coffered ceiling in that huge living room. I mean, the detail and the geometry and the volume of the space and the Philippine mahogany, just unheard of today. Incredible. I do remember a story. Here again, we're still in the driveway, kind of wraps around here. I think the front door is right here, maybe. But again, as Wright always did, more solid walls facing the street for privacy, and he completely opens it up to the back. So here's the backyard. And I mean, it's floor to ceiling glass all the way around. I think, if I remember correctly, the owner told us a story that it was under construction, and I think like the owner was away, and Wright visited the site with the apprentices and didn't like the way that a wall was constructed. It either didn't have the stone protruding out the way Mr. Wright liked, as we all know, making it look like a natural outcropping. And he had his apprentices tear the wall down. And the owner came back and was furious, and that caused some consternation. But yeah, we've heard that story before, a typical Wright story. But everybody survived, and now you have an incredible home. These weird lights in here, I think, if I remember correctly, there were a lot of like tropical indoor plants in here at the time. And I think these were providing light to the plants. But again, this Bermuda, this copper roof, it's just absolutely amazing. What I'm always amazed at with Frank Lloyd Wright's architecture, but with these homes especially, is you've got all this floor to ceiling glass. And as an architect myself, I wonder, where is the shear wall? Like what is keeping it from racking and moving? Just structurally, it's always been a mystery to me. As like, are these steel support columns here? I mean, it's hard to figure the structure out, and it's just Wright's magic. But again, the whole house, I think, was designed on a diamond module or a triangular module. Here you do have, I think, the hexagonal kind of skylights or openings in the roof overhang here, just like in the living room area. But again, here you have the angle. And then, of course, the lights have to match the geometry for organic architecture. Towards the back of the house, there's a lot of retaining walls, a lot of different levels. I think this was an office back here. Again, all this floor to ceiling glass and retaining walls. But again, taking into account the site, these trees, and building it around these trees, so close like this, which now that I look at this, I'm kind of amazed at, because you would think the footings for these retaining walls is that, conflicting with the roots of the tree. Doesn't look like there's any issue. And again, when you do something like this, you just marry the architecture with the site so beautifully. It's just so natural looking. It's just incredible. Here's kind of another detail of this office area back here. Again, it was raining on this particular day, but again, the red concrete floor extends out to the exterior. Look at this here. It looks like the concrete was opened up here for this tree to come through. I mean, again, this beautiful connection between nature and the building. There's no separation between the two. Something just to note here, a little bit different. These look like either steel window and door frames, a little bit different for Wright. I mean, typically they would have been wood. They look original. So I don't know if that was something that was just specified in the project as different than most of Mr. Wright's other Usonian houses. So that's it for this particular presentation. Next time, we will go into more archives, dig into more of the photos from the archives from the early to mid 90s. Looks like we're going to Wisconsin and other parts of the Midwest. And so I thank you all for coming with me on this part of our journey. And until next time, we'll go back into the archives then. Thank you all. See you later.